Hello again, this is Will. I'd like to thank anyone that's liked and subscribed onto the previous video introducing myself, my plans for the channel, obviously highlighting there, going over the weekly goings on within my life, almost as a diary, as you heard. Hello, and that'll be the first guest. I'll just pop him to the side. And so with this video, I'm going to go through the football goings on within the week, sort of an update from my point of view. Obviously, the main football goings on at the moment are the European Championships, so I'll happily go through them, sort of offering out my opinion, as well as a quick look into some of the news headlines within the Premier League. Potentially, with a bit more understanding, I might look into the very big headlines going across Europe or in the lower echelons of the English Football League. Obviously, my team, Ipswich, are currently in the Premier League, so I will be biased when it comes to what's going on in the Premier League based on my team, as well as the European Championships. I may obviously show bias towards the home nations, obviously in particular England. So that's a quick summary of that. So as well as that, I suppose it's a good timing to go through it all now. We've had a first round of fixtures. We've got a good idea of what some of the teams are like, a few surprises here and there. I suppose if it was nicer and time permitting, I could have done this yesterday. However, I was unable to due to my own work-life schedule, and so I've decided to go through it all now. Sort of looking into having gone through all of the groups through from A to F, and then the next round of the fixtures in Group A, sort of Group B continuing. I suppose 2 o'clock today. Cool. So the first round of fixtures through Group A. Now this had the start for the home nation Germany against Scotland, their first, I suppose it's back-to-back Euros now. I kept thinking it was first, but so that it's sort of a nation that didn't regularly qualify within my lifetime, as opposed to the previous Euros. The last time they were in major championship to my memory was Euro 96, and my football memory might not have been quite up to scratch then, being 4 or so years old. So throughout this game, unfortunately, you could sort of tell how this game was going to go when there was a celebration 3 minutes in for a strong challenge, as it were. You sort of think, okay, this is 3 minutes in, 90-minute game, wasn't going to go very well. It's only a few minutes later that you could almost say an onslaught sort of began, as it were, with Germany just unfortunately walking all over Scotland. They find space, they find gaps, they exploit it with variously good sort of fluid footballers who are technically very gifted, sort of through Florian Wirtz, Jamal Musiala, as well as Kai Havertz. They have a very fluid front line. They are very interchangeable. They're all sort of attacker midfielders, sort of shifting from left to right, taking up different spaces and causing all sorts of issues with the Scottish defence, who, although has sort of do play a almost sort of 5 at the back, it's not. I mean, they sort of do their best, but there's just levels in technical quality between the two teams, and it was highly exposed, which obviously did unfortunately include Scottish sending off of Porteous, who, ironically, when people, including myself, looked at that first time, oh, no, it might be a foul. Second time, yeah, that was pretty bad. That could have broken his leg. And so it's just unfortunately one-way traffic. The home nation's behind Germany. It was only unfortunately ever going to go one way, as much as I would obviously like Scotland to do well as a home nation, regardless of some Scottish people's opinions on England. As I've seen several football chants when looking into the build-ups to the game, how Scotland fans seem to be cheering on Maradona more than any Scottish player just because of how he's done against England in previous football tournaments, which is a bit silly, but is what it is. I mean, going out there, having a few drinks, having a laugh, yeah, that's fine. And so go to the next game in Group A, the Switzerland-Hungary. So Switzerland, we're going into this. A lot of people get sort of excited as Hungary as dark horses through sort of various sort of quality players, sort of mostly based in the Bundesliga, as well as sort of some that come over to the Premier League like Szoboszlai. However, Switzerland are a regular in most football tournaments, World Cup, European Championships, and they are a team that they regularly get through the group stages. They usually have a tendency to struggle in the knockout stages due to the sort of the quality, as it were. However, Switzerland obviously themselves do have quality players, sort of some based within the Premier League, some who are very experienced at this tournament level. So you're looking at Jan Sommer, who I believe had the most clean sheets within the top 5 leagues in Europe. There's an Inter Milan team that ran away with the league. People like Akanji, obviously won league with Manchester City. Fabian Schär, experienced defender for Newcastle. And then you're sort of looking at other experienced players throughout Europe. So you've got Freuler, you've got Xherdan Shaqiri, who I might believe is playing in the MLS. I'll have to fact check that. And Breel Imbolo, who's spent a lot of time within the Bundesliga, who I certainly always see scoring at tournaments, of which he obviously did, adding a third goal to the game just to essentially just confirm it, sort of the game. So obviously looking into this, Scotland are going to need to get sort of a bit more against Switzerland, who are going to be the tougher opposition. I'd like to think that they potentially get the 3 points against Hungary. Hungary are shaping up to be one of the weaker teams at the moment, but obviously tactics will work differently against different teams, and so we can have a look into that for the next round of fixtures. So we move on to Group B. Now, Group B, some people would consider as the group of death. I don't think they are based on the FIFA World Rankings. If you sort of add up the rankings, divide sort of by the number and work out an average score, I don't believe they are considered dead group. However, you've got Spain, you've got Croatia, you've got Italy, you've got Albania. You've got 3 teams there that have done very well in recent tournaments. Italy, current holders. Spain, the only team to win back-to-back European Championships. And Croatia, who regularly punch above their weight in World Cups. So I suppose the more juicy fixture of this group was Spain against Croatia. Now, this has unfortunately ended up becoming a lot more one-sided, at least looking on the scoreline, than some people would have thought. Croatia obviously have a very experienced, dominant midfield. You're looking at Luka Modric, you're looking at Marcel Brozovic, you're looking at Kovacic. However, it looked like they seemed to struggle with it without an out-and-out number 9, like they sort of had with Mario Mandzukic. So unfortunately, they did struggle in this game, eventually losing 3-0. Goals from Alvaro Morata, Fabian Ruiz, and Dani Carvajal, who seems to suddenly start scoring clutch goals, as it were, having scored in the Champions League final. And now I believe this is his potentially first goal for Spain in the Championships at, I believe, he's 32, 33 years old as a right back. Sort of getting into the box a lot more, getting his head on things, fair enough. Croatia, towards the end of the game, had a penalty. to which they were unable to score. Well, so the penalty obviously didn't go in. The follow-up did, however, there was an issue over encroachment, and so the penalty obviously wasn't allowed, or the goal wasn't allowed to stand, so finished 3-0. Now, the next game was far more entertaining from a neutral perspective, I'd say, with a tendency to root for the underdogs. So you've got Italy against Albania. Albania are not a well-known big footballing nation. This is one of the first times they've come into a major tournament, and I mean, they certainly made the most of it. I believe scoring it's 27 seconds. Poor throw-in from DeMarco sort of led the striker Bajrami to jink past the defenders and beat Donnarumma at his near posts. Everyone excited. Unfortunately, quality does sort of shine through, and so I believe it was about 10 minutes. Bastoni scoring sort of from a header, and then Nico Barella with an absolutely lovely volley. Fortunately, as I say, quality shows these are top-notch Inter Milan players who have just won the title, technically very good. If I was to say out of all these teams, I'd suppose before the tournament I'd be looking at Italy as the ones that might struggle, as they've gone through a lot of change compared to the previous tournaments. Some of the players have aged out, so people like Ciro Immobile, for example. But unfortunately, they look very, very good. I believe Spalletti in charge, who was a very good technical manager, having won the league with Napoli in previous seasons, and I think the quality of managers may show up in the later rounds in the tournament, making the difference, knowing when to adapt and change when something's not going their way. So this is what I think this puts Italy in very good stead, as well as having a midfielder like Nico Barella, who, if anyone's going to make the difference in that Italy team, in my opinion, it's going to come through him, or it's going to be directly involving him. Cool. So, upon that, we've also then got, going into Group C. So, Group C, this first one started with Poland against the Netherlands. End result being Netherlands winning 2-1, although they definitely made a meal of it, having missed arguably one of the best technical players in Frankie de Jong, sort of Barcelona midfielder. They left at the very last minute, realised they couldn't make it, had to bring in sort of several other players as well. It sort of looked like they might have needed someone to control the game a little bit more. Everything the first few minutes was very quick, very direct. It's sort of to slow down, be patient. This Polish team had sort of very good players, unfortunately missing their star Lewandowski. However, they still managed to take the lead, but unfortunately just the sheer persistence of the Netherlands team came through. You got Gakpo, slightly deflected shot, and Wout Weghorst scoring the winner. Now, the Netherlands aren't blessed with the amazing strikers of past, sort of the Van Nistelrooys, the Van Persies, the Dennis Bergkamps. Now, Weghorst might not be arguably as technically good as like a Bergkamp, but he's a physical presence. He'll cause a nuisance, and he'll be in the right areas as a striker to get the goals. Yeah. And then I believe we were looking at France against Austria. Now, France go into the tournament as favourites, quite rightfully, in my opinion. The greatest squad depth out of everyone there. Some fans might argue England. With the injuries due to the defence, I don't see that at all. So, France ended up winning. It was 1-0. Sort of good work from Mbappe to create, the havoc to cause the own goal. However, obviously, with that scoreline, they clearly see they didn't have it their own way. Austria, managed by Ralf Rangnick, unfortunately, not too good of a managerial time in England with Man United, is a manager who's very much involved in the Red Bull football franchise sort of around the world. Now, Red Bull franchise, you've got Leipzig, you've got Salzburg, you've got New York Red Bulls. I won't be able to list all of their teams, but they all play a very similar style of football. It's fast, it's direct. So with everyone sort of a lot of players going through that within the Austrian system, it makes it very easy to bring all the tactics across. If you understand the manager's tactics, it makes it, and you're playing exactly the same system for your club level, that makes things very good. And that is why the Austria team, in my opinion, would have been considered sort of the dark horses. They understand the tactics. They've got quality sprinkled throughout that team and various top-notch players in the Bundesliga, including Marcel, Sabitzer, Baumgartner. There's definite quality there, and I wouldn't underestimate them, and I wouldn't be surprised if they shock a few teams, i.e. sort of Poland and Netherlands, to potentially get through, or obviously look at potentially the best of the third place teams, as several third place teams obviously get through due to the new structure of the European Championships. Going into Group E, I'm going to lie, I had a bit of bias into this. So the first game here would be sort of Romania against the Ukraine. Romania won handsomely 3-0. Some absolutely amazing finishes. Stanciu, I believe, sort of the first goal scorer at the start, and then several sort of goals afterwards just to kill off the game. At the start of this game, if I was the betting man, I would be putting money on Ukraine due to several quality players, your Zinchenko's, as well as sort of as other players that have experience in top leagues within Europe. However, they just didn't seem quite there. I don't know. I mean, I've seen them in build-up friendlies. I've seen them in games against England where they've almost looked like they had a bit more fight. I don't know. I mean, you could argue it could be down to sort of the tactical decisions sort of made within the Romanian team. I would sort of highlight for the Ukrainian team, unfortunately, to keep an eye on their goalkeeper, Andrei Lunin. Now, he is going to be one of the bigger names in the squad, playing for Real Madrid, having played a lot of games there this season due to Thibaut Courtois' injuries. However, he did not look very comfortable. I believe the second shot, you could argue he might have done better, the ball sort of almost going through him, and several nervous occasions through corners, the ball potentially almost going the whole way in, as he doesn't seem to be confident in coming and collecting the crosses, which is something unfortunately I've seen at club level in El Clasico against Barcelona. This did end up actually leading to a goal in that game. However, in this one, obviously, it didn't, but it's something to be very mindful of. I think a lot of teams might target him, put him under pressure, not be afraid to take shots from distance. So I would look at that if I was an opposing team, potentially obviously the manager for Ukraine. Obviously, maybe he's had a bad game, but it's something I would keep a close eye on as a worry. Now, the next game within this group was Belgium-Slovakia. Now, this was a brilliant game. This is one that you root for as a neutral. You always support the underdogs, because Slovakia obviously ended up winning said game through grants. I do apologise once again if I butcher any of these names. Through some sloppy passing around the back, created an opportunity which obviously took advantage of. However, before that and throughout that, Belgium themselves had a lot of chances, including sort of several from Romelu Lukaku, who unfortunately international, despite scoring several goals for Belgium in recent tournament games, has missed some sitters. If you were to add up and calculate the XG, it does not look good for the Chelsea striker. So as well as obviously actually having goals disallowed, including from Lewis Openda, who's come off a very good season with RB Leipzig. So the Belgians need to wake up a bit more. I think they've got the quality players. They should have the quality players to get through the group. I mean, you've got people like De Bruyne, Tielemans, Leandro Trossard, as well as sort of Lukaku, Doku. This should be a walkover. Obviously, there's something not quite right there. The manager's going to go back and have a look at that. It's Benjamin Tedesco, I believe, who obviously previously managed Borussia Dortmund. So he's used to high level sort of expectations. So I believe that they should turn this around for the next game. Now, I'm going to Group F. So first game would have been Turkey against Georgia. God, there were some good goals in this game. It's some of the... I sort of feel sorry for the Georgian goalkeeper, because some of the finishing was just absolutely top-notch. Sort of winning 3-1, two of those goals, including the second from Arda Güler, Real Madrid wonder kid. It's just... They just curl sort of round sort of distance. It's just, you can't just sort of... Something just to sort of sit up and applaud and say, you know what, fair play, that was a good goal. Georgia themselves did make a go of it as one of the lowest ranked teams within the tournament. However, they left themselves sort of exposed, trying to go for the game towards the end of it, led to the third Turkish goal, with the goalkeeper having gone up for several previous set plays, quick turnover of possession, up the other end and score. So, rather entertaining game from, despite having two nations which you sort of look at the game, you sort of think, ugh, it might be a bit of a write-off, but no, really good and fun, enjoyable game. So the next game in Group F, we're looking at Portugal and Czech Republic. Czech Republic regularly qualify for European Championships, however they're obviously not known for getting very far. Portugal are recent winners, and the bookies will put them up there as one of the favourites due to the depth and the quality of the squad. So you've still got Cristiano Ronaldo, arguably slightly ageing out. You've still got so much quality running through that squad in almost every position, from centre-backs like Ruben Dias, full-backs João Cancelo, Bruno Fernandes in midfield, Rafa Leao sort of on the left. It's ridiculously good squad. It's managed by Roberto Martinez, which, in my opinion, might be where some of the potential issues lie. Unfortunately, he's a manager, I believe, who always sort of seems to fall upwards, having had the golden generation at Belgium and being unable to really do enough with the quality of squad that they did have. And now to almost go into Portugal's now potential golden generation. Not a big fan of that tag. However, you'd sort of expect them to do quite well, but he's not. You sort of worried sort of tactically with him whether he's sort of going to be the right fit. Now Portugal, they got the win. That's probably the nicest thing I can say. Obviously, I don't naturally expect more sort of scoring through an own goal. Czech Republic obviously giving sort of fight and equalising, and Conceição, the Sporting Lisbon midfielder, ended up getting the winner very late on. It's not very convincing. Arguably, it doesn't necessarily have to be convincing within the group stage, but you'd like to sort of hope that they build on this if they're going to go further and be a serious contender within the championships, as they very much have the potential to be a serious contender within the championships. So now we go back round to Group A. So Germany playing Hungary. Sort of routine. Sort of unfortunately, if you were to guess, you could tell Germany were just going to just get through the game, sort of nice and comfortably. Musiala, Wirtz, they're just sort of the fluid interplay. I think a lot of teams really will struggle to deal with that, sort of having those quality options. And they've got a nice blend of sort of a youth and experience when you've got people like Toni Kroos, Ilkay Gundogan, Manuel Neuer running through that team, it just feels like they could do something in the tournament. And if I was to do a prediction, this is a team I'd expect to get semi-finals, if not finals, potential winners, because they're that good, as well as having one of the best managers in the tournament, in Julian Nagelsmann, who's, I believe, is one of the youngest. However, having had great experience playing for several teams within the Bundesliga, and having managed Bayern Munich, with which several German players obviously play for, may not have ended out exactly how he would have liked, being a Bayern Munich fan, and that many Germany fans arguably are. It just feels like it's just going to work out. He's very good. He was a name linked with several Premier League teams beforehand. However, obviously, as a successful tournament, obviously stay on. Not so successful. I mean, you've got to meet expectations with certain countries' FAs. Otherwise, it could be a very quick exit. But they've got everything they need to have a great tournament. So, and then this would have been Scotland against Switzerland. It would have been the most recent game sort of played yesterday, with the game finishing 1-1, with Scott McTominay scoring for the Scottish and Xherdan Shaqiri for Switzerland. McTominay goal, sort of well worked goal. Obviously took a slight defection, Fabian Schär, but you accept whatever goal you can. If you've managed to see me playing football, I'd score goals off my shin, off my stomach, off of anything, and sort of I wouldn't care. I don't think Scottish care. Goal's a goal, it went in. Unfortunately, they were a bit lacklustre at the back, like potentially a bit of concentration. I believe the right back who's come in to replace Porteous, there's a poor back pass. Xherdan Shaqiri, very experienced player, witnesses this, runs onto it, and has a very good finish. The keeper, unfortunately, has little to no chance of saving that. It's top corner, perfect game. So I'd say this is a good response from Scotland, obviously having received a bit of a battering against the Germans, against a very good Switzerland team. Now this means that they'll go into the next game against Hungary, who've lost both games. So you'd like to think that makes sort of Hungary one of the weaker teams by the looks of how things are going. So I could potentially see Scotland nicking this, and then maybe Switzerland struggling against the Germans. So Scotland and Switzerland could end up on a similar level of points, sort of second and third. Looking at teams that finish well in the third place, this does bode well for Scotland to at least get out of the group, which I believe should be their expectations or hopes. So I believe they'd be happy with that. If they can sort of perform any miracles against any other big teams, then great, fantastic. But I would just say that'd be good for them, and I think there's sort of something to build on for the future. Obviously, they're still lacking depth in certain positions. I believe they've got obviously great strength with left backs of Kieran Tierney and Andrew Robertson, some quality in the midfield with John McGinn, Scott McTominay. However, you'd sort of wonder if they can sort of improve in some of the defensive positions, maybe more of a goal threat up front, despite having people like Chad Adams who are workhorses and will help create opportunities. You need a striker that's just going to get you goals. And Scott McTominay obviously being the top goal scorer for Scotland in the qualifying, up there with the Kanes, the Mbappes, the Lukakus. It's brilliant, but it just doesn't seem sustainable. You want some more quality coming through there, but obviously the players are getting experience, and then you're looking at building sort of tournament upon tournament, obviously aiming to qualify regularly for tournaments, which is what they've started to do if this is back-to-back European Championships. So I'd say good luck to them. As an English person that doesn't seem to have that much of a disdain for the Scottish, even if they are considered an old enemy or what have you, I personally don't see it. So that's my wrap up for the European Championships. I'd like to have a quick rundown, a quick look through on some other things just outside of that. So the Premier League is a quick update. The fixture list was released several days ago. My bias obviously looking out for the Ipswich Town fixtures and sort of almost wanting to cry, because you could argue that sort of two of the toughest teams you could sort of face going up into the Premier League. Although you obviously might take advantage of the fact that early on teams might not have settled. So Ipswich's first two games, home game, 12:30 kickoff against Liverpool. Traditionally, they don't often do very well on Sky Sports. However, 12:30, I know Liverpool struggle with early kickoffs. The new manager in Arne Slot, who will tactically approach things differently to Jurgen Klopp, I believe. Potentially the team will look very different, players being sold after the championships, wanting to stamp his own authority by bringing his own players in. I haven't seen sort of too many sort of strong rumours for them at the moment regarding players. However, it's sort of a case of wait and see. A lot of teams haven't making a lot of like big moves. We've sort of seen some moves of Ipswich standing sort of youngsters from Crystal Palace. There's a Brazilian, I believe West Ham signed for 30 million, but I suppose what I'm saying is they're not sort of well-known names that are moving. I mean, I'd say arguably one of the biggest ones is going on at the moment, obviously hasn't run through, is Douglas Luiz, potentially involved in a swap deal with Juventus, with several players coming in from Juventus going the other way. So we'll wait and see how that goes, because I believe this is very much tied into his girlfriend also getting a move to Juventus, Alicia Lehmann, who I'm sure most blokes here will probably end up recognising. Sort of as a couples transfer almost, which is a bit new, a bit unique for... It's never something that's sort of happened before, although you don't often sort of have all the sort of players from the men's and women's teams obviously sort of together, so potentially something looking forward into the future that might happen. I don't know. It's getting a bit off topic here. And then, so back to Ipswich Town's fixtures. Beyond that, the away trip to Manchester City, easily the most difficult fixture throughout the whole of the league. Champions at their place. They're traditionally slow starters, so I'm optimistic that something might happen. Unfortunately, at the moment, having mentioned about the transfer rumours, I've not seen too many names linked with Ipswich. We sort of had offers rebuffed for a Greek striker who, for the life of me, I'm going to start writing down their names and hopefully not butchering their names. It's been rebuffed. He's sort of looking to move to Serie A, potentially Bologna. So I believe Ipswich are out of that running, but seem to be obviously linked with a striker. There needs to be an improvement within the quality of the squad. I believe these are players that give and have given beyond their level, their footballing ability, as it were, that give 110%. Now, that's brilliant. However, it's just the technical level differences between you could arguably say for League One players or Championship players compared to Premier League players. You worry. You don't want a Sheffield United. You don't want to be going against Newcastle and getting pumped 8-0. I mean, every Ipswich Town fan will never want to sack their manager or anything like that. But it's incredibly demoralising, and it's very happy to be in the Premier League, but it's incredibly demoralising. You don't want to be going through something along those lines. Looking at some of the other fixtures, I can sort of run through a few of them very briefly. West Ham, I believe, having a happy run towards the start of the fixture, not leaving London for, I believe, the first month. So obviously looking primarily at home as well as sort of looking at the other London teams. So it's not too much travelling there, which I think could benefit the team, not having to sort of travel and move around so much. obviously looking at potentially needing to bring in new players, an adjustment of tactics from a David Moyes style to a Julian Lopetegui style could mean there's going to be a bit of change around there. So I like to think they do well, but this might be a season of regression. Not quite sure yet. And then I suppose you're looking at one of the other promoted teams, Maresca at Chelsea, who was playing at home, I believe, first game against Manchester City and Pep Guardiola, one of now his 6 or 7 disciples, as it were, players that have worked for or played under Pep Guardiola. I'm still not sure on Leicester yet, because, well, not Leicester, obviously he's moved from Leicester, on the Chelsea team yet. There's a manager who's not had that much experience. He managed in Serie A. He's now gone over to Leicester, obviously had a very good squad for the Championship, and you could arguably say almost bottled it towards the end. But I don't know necessarily whether the situation there is going to be entirely down to him. You're looking at a squad that's not necessarily in his control, is sort of under the management or being told these are players you've signed, you've got to make them work. And then you're looking at a difference between a manager and a head coach, which can to some seem a little bit trivial. However, obviously the head coach is primarily in charge of just training the team, getting tactics, formations right on the day, whereas a manager has more involvement throughout the football club. Now, some teams head coaches work, some teams managers work. I'd argue that managers in recent times have struggled with some of their involvements, depending on the level of job that they've got to do, the level of responsibilities they have to do. This a good example of this, you'd argue, could be Erik ten Hag at Manchester United. Now, he is a very good coach, worked Bayern Munich under Pep, arguably another disciple, as well as Ajax, and now at Manchester United. He can set up a team very well. He's got a clear idea of what he wants to play, how he wants to play, which some people could argue that there isn't sort of very good sort of tactics within that team. However, he knows what he's doing, but what he struggles with is transfers. In my opinion, he's looking at known quantities, bringing those in, not looking at potentially at the future, sort of signing youngsters and developing them in a Manchester United way. He only recently sort of started to look to the academy when the finances got tighter at the club, which the team has benefited from, i.e. people like Garnacho, Kobbie Mainoo, potentially sort of more players sort of within the future. But his transfers obviously haven't proven quite right. You sort of look at people like Anthony, obviously the big highlight there of the amount of money spent. He needs to know, this is what many other teams need to know, if the other club's asking too much, you can just walk away. You can always have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. Don't necessarily put it all on your plan A. So I think that will be it for today. I'll release a new video again on Monday. I might look at potentially doing a few different offshoots from the main channel, with this being one of them looking at football, potentially one looking more into music or TV shows. But for now, thank you for everyone that's liked and subscribed. Look forward to seeing everyone Monday. By all means, spread the word. Let's sort of build this thing up. Everything's sort of still new and exciting, and I want to sort of get feedback from you guys as to how best to go forward. So thank you very much. I'll see you all later.